Chapter 5. The ball was a totally success. And the ball was a totally successful one. Everybody admired Olivia as the pretty girl and the interesting one. Everybody from now on did not think that she was the girl who was the odd girl with the weird-looking hair that now was called the beauty of the city, and wasn't called the little gray hood because she always wore a gray coat and it looked like if it were a gray hood over her head, and so people called her the Gray Hood. But now it was not Gray Hood, it was the lovely one. And Olivia had a talent, a beautiful one, the one that was only possessed by few, the talent of a good voice. She could sing as well as anybody could have ever. And she sang doubly loud and doubly talented as anyone that had a bit of talent. And she had the way of making her hair fly in the air when she was playing on the piano and singing. Everybody thought her like a fairy, singing a lullaby for them to sleep. It was so nice to see a woman so beautiful, so elegant, and so, well, they still called her odd, but liked the oddness of her. And they rather liked her for the oddness that she had and that she possessed, and that few of them possessed. It was pretty a shock to feel that she could be so very interesting. But of course here, they always thought she was a very, very nice girl, but never thought that she was such a talented and nice and kind. And they always said that she wasn't to blame and stuff like that. But they blamed her secretly always. But now, who dared to blame her for the beauty or for the talentness that she had? After that ball, there was a lot of gossiping like this one. Well, let's see our new talented star. She's called Olivia. Think about it, Olivia, the girl with the shabby hood. The gray hood has turned into a nightingale. Oh dear me, it is a possible thing, but who thought it would be possible on her? It was like magic. Another said, I don't think it is magic at all, said a professor. I just think it is wonderful. She must have hidden her talent for years. I like her singing, but I rather think she wore a too fancy dress for her shame. But I like the set she's playing. But I rather wanted her to play a smaller one, said the professor. The professor was the teacher and the college professor and of the Queens. He always liked Olivia in spite of her aunts. Everybody said that the professor was always playing favorites, because in every class that the professor taught, she got the best that was provided for her grades. And the professor always set an example, as Olivia Chapter did, so you guys should. Or she did something, blah, and then you should try it too. You students must learn to be like Olivia Chapter. Crawford or something like this. And people thought he was playing favorites. But now, who was playing favorites? Nobody ever wanted to talk about playing favorites. Everybody liked her now, and she was the favorite of everybody, not only of one college professor. Olivia was quite dazzled by this scene of herself being honored by so many people, but she rather liked the prospect, and she knew she had to be grateful for all of them. But there was some gossip that she did not really like, and that Edward or Chris did not like. One old maid said that was watching them dance outside the window. You know, guys, fellowmen, I looked out in the window, and you see what? I saw Olivia Crawford, the new star, dancing with Edward, and it was so dreamy, her long dress flying. But it ain't good for her, because I don't think Edward is good for her. I think that Chris is much better, and I like him more as if it was to be a groom of her, said the maid. I was looking in the window and feeling how sad I was because I wasn't invited, and I really wanted to have a peep and sip a nice coffee and sit around the corner and look at the young people have a little dance. And you know what? I saw the oddest thing, and it happened to me. Well, here you go. Here you go. And here you go. I'll tell you what happened. Olivia Crawford, the new star, invited me to go to the party without no invitation, without no dress, and without no jewelry. I, plain me, just went to the party, and I'm really obliged for it, because I really like the one. And I don't really approve not inviting me, because I'm not a very, very popular person. But it would be so kind if she did, and she really did. So, fellows, what do you think of her? Isn't she the nicest girl? And think what she said to me. She said, "Oh, dear lady, why won't you come in and have a little sip and sit in a little corner and talk to some of the women, or have a little dance? I like to see you people have a nice time. It's me enjoying and you enjoying. If you enjoy yourself, I'm going to enjoy myself hugely. So please come in and have a good time. It will be the best gift I ever received, to see people happy. Isn't that just the kindest word that a pretty mouth can utter?" she said, and declaimed that she would worship her all her life, and went away. The men who were listening said, Well, I think she's a great work. But I still don't see how Mr. Smith could have brought up such a girl. He must have been not at home, or she would be a stout and robbing child. She might have helped him to rob if he were at home all the time, but he isn't at home all the time. And she got none of her uncle's wives, or that would be so a disgraceful scene, to see her, Olivia Crawford, who the new town star was, to be such a it's a demonstration to think about it, said another woman. But don't think about it. It's not that bad. She's just a little bit like a little odd. But she isn't the bad part of his vibes. His vibes are okay, said the woman's friend. And they walked along to the party, where the party was going the high point. Everybody crowded around the door and wanted to go in and have a peep and sip a coffee, like the woman said. But not everybody had a chance. And the house was gigantic, but the ballroom was so small. Catherine was saying, "Oh dear, we can't invite more, Olivia. I'm so sorry." But Olivia said, "No buts for you, Catherine dear. You told me that you'd listen to me for one day, and I want to be mistress of house just one day, please." "Okay, but don't make things wrong, and please tell me what you've done," said Catherine with doubtful eyes on her. Don't mistake me, because I'm Olivia Chapter, and Olivia Chapter never does things too bad to be seen and to be disgraceful," said Olivia. So I'm going to put up some new rooms. We have the big parlor for another ballroom where the other people can dance, but not the invited ones, because the invited ones might get vexed, And then we have the hall, the big long hall. Nobody stands there, so we can put up some nice little tables and have some coffee there. And if there is cookies enough, we can put some cookies and biscuits there, and they'll have a jolly old nice time. And then we have the upper room where the piano is. I can sing a lovely song there, and there will be a sensation, I hope. And then they can each have turns, and it will be a nice place. And we can put a little table in the corner where the people can sit and sip coffee and listen to the music. Isn't that just wonderful? And we have the outside. The outside, it's snowing, but I don't know why why in the world November can snow, but whatever. It's snowing, and outside is cold. So, and you guys are amazingly rich. So I don't think I think you would be very jolly to give up some old muffs, and then I'll go out and give them to the shabby ones, which you all call. And then it's all perfect. Everybody had a great day today then. And the ones who didn't will have another good day for tomorrow, because I'm going to back tomorrow, and I'm going to fetch the new apples. Uncle Smith isn't home, and he said I might give the apples away like I always wanted to before he went. And he's going to clear things up. And after all this, they'll believe me. And then we might tell a little bit of Uncle Smith, she said with a wistful tone. Yes, we would, Catherine said, thinking how good a housemaid she would be, and how good she was at planning for dinners and suppers for Chris or Edward. But no, this was too fast thinking. She was just 14. Well, whatever. Everything worked well, and after all, everybody believed that Mr. Smith had done nothing wrong, but he was just walking on the street. They hadn't enough property just to show who was the thief, but they knew someone was. So all the people now believed it, and they had to make the polices too. So Mrs. Smith, one day in her sofa and looking at her jewelry, said, Alexander, could you please invite Dr. Alban here?" "Why, yes, Mrs." Alexander said, because he was a favorite servant of all. And he was always sent for things, and because they were always very important. "Yes, madame. And should I bring any letter or anything to say?" "Oh, yes, Alexander, how thoughtful of you. You could just say that I wanted to see him about a matter about the bank robbing. And that's all. He'll come as fast as he will. And bring the small carriage, because the big one is going to prevent for Olivia. And the middle-sized one is for Chris. He's going out today. And the other carriages are too large for a party of 2 of you. And it will take too much space on the road. And I don't want the others to crank about us. And one of the middle-sized carriages are used by Mr. Moore. So please bring the doctor here and make that the carriages are enough, even though if we have 15. And I don't want anything on the floor today. No pieces of paper from piano writing of yesterday. I don't know what has got into Edward, but he wants to write a piece for Olivia. Isn't this ridiculous going on? But I still like Olivia like she is. Well, thank you, Alexander, and I'm very much obliged to you. After that, you can have your afternoon rest, if nobody has anything to say. And Alexander went cheerfully out, thinking about the mistress and what she said. Well, seems like Edward and Chris got a heart big enough for Olivia. Well, this is going well. I always knew that little girl wasn't anything of a normal kind. Chris isn't a normal boy, and Edward isn't. And Edward is very special. So they two, one of them will make a great match for her. And I rather think Edward will make it, although Chris is older and the family favorite. Well, I'd rather say Edward, because he so longed for Mary, and now that he doesn't long for Mary, he must long for somebody else. And this somebody else could be someone very great, like her. So it would be just the perfect thing. Oh, everything's going to work well, I think. And with these words, he went to fetch the doctor. When the doctor came, he solved the problem by saying, I'll go and look at the details of the crime, and I'll come back at 5 if you want me, madame, he said. No, thank you, doctor. I'm very obliged to you that you are going. And please make sure that we find out the real one. And I'm just telling you, of the suspense list, you can kick Mr. Smith out of the way for all and once, because I know he's noble, and I know what is in his bag. He told me yesterday, and it wasn't any gold, and he meant it truthfully. I can see it from his eyes. So now please go. And the doctor went running out and went to the bank. And further information is not available because it happened too fast and too much. Well, it was all good. After that, they found out who the real thief was, and the crime was committed and an end. The gold was brought back, and the people who lost their tiny pieces of gold were repaid by the person who stole them. And Mr. Smith was got out of jail and apologized by all of the policemen, and he got even a little prize. Not much. It wasn't really of any allowances, because it was just a tiny bit of fortune, because he stayed in the dungeon for 2 weeks and without committing any crime at all. It was just a little money that could save him from going down of the depths for 2 weeks, and everything was fine again. And when he came back, he knew what his little dear had done. He was so grateful. He thought everything would work out then, but something wouldn't. Edward was very eager to win, and whom he was going to win? Of course, he was going to win Olivia, and he was going to defeat Chris, he thought. By defeating her, I have to prove myself worthy of her, and I need to know a lot about her. Although I know a lot about her and she doesn't know it, that I know it. And some things she doesn't know herself, so I should tell her and make her feel that I am the person who saved her a lot of brain breaking of those secrets. And then I'll be one of her stars, shining in the dark when she needs me. Oh, it's so planned out, he wrote in his diary that day. He was a bit old for diaries, his mother always said, but he always liked, because Chris now wasn't a real friend who he trusted to talk to, because now Chris was named enemy in his diary and for all in his mind. And you don't talk to enemies about a person you want to win, and your enemy wants to win it too, and you're talking about your plans. Oh, fiddlesticks, he won't do that. Well, he never did. But then you have to tell a secret, and this secret was large, a bit too large for Olivia. She did not know what was coming, and had no preparation for anything. But that day in the garden, he said, "Do you mind if I tell you something? The something is the truth. And don't believe me that I'm lying. I am not lying. I'm telling the truth. I just want to tell you that your uncle and aunt have been lying to you." "Lying about what?" Olivia said in astonishment. "They've been loving me all my life." "How can you say that they had kept a secret? My aunt already advised me that she knew my mother before, and it was she who put me in the orphan asylum, and it was she who gave me the extra that I always had in the orphan asylum. I'm really grateful that she did, because I know I wouldn't feel well when I was a baby with thin hands that have never touched a baby. And the orphan asylum was really comfy for me, except that I was always missing my father and mother and uncle and aunt, because I was told I had one. And the teacher always made great stories about them, like my mom was an angel, my father was a hero, and my aunt was the heroine of a book, and my uncle was the great man. Like those stories, I believed them till I saw them and realized that the heroes don't resist and angels aren't real. But I know that they love me dearly, and with those words I know that they can be my hero and my angel at the same time, because they have the love for me. And I know my mother and father will always be on my mind whenever I'm going. So don't ever talk about this anymore, Eddie. I want you as a very great friend. I don't like to be obsessed with those kind of things." Well, Edward, listening to so good and loving speech, he almost felt a gulp on his throat on what he was going to say. "Olivia, this is serious. It's not any loving. It's something for a daughter. You have to know. You have to know. You have to. And the have to is that your father's still alive. And he never yet ever died. He's still in this world somewhere, wandering about and wanting to find you." What?" Olivia declaimed. This isn't true. Eddie, why are you talking nonsense? I always thought you were a nice boy. Why are you talking nonsense? Eddie, try to go back into your senses. I don't like people without senses, and I would really like you with them. Oh, Eddie, I don't like tricks like those. I like ones that are funny, not like those. Oh, don't make a joke of my mother and father. It isn't funny. She declaimed and wanted to go away. No, I mean it really, Olivia. Your father's still alive. He hadn't the strength to take you because he never took a baby in his arm, except for once when you were born and once when your mama died. And he was trembling with fear. You accidentally fell on the floor, and that gave you the little scratch on your head. Do you see it? Olivia quickly took out a little mirror and saw the little scratch. It was just like the prescription. And she said in a so low tone that she was almost going to faint. And he never wanted to pick you up again. He was afraid that he would do something wrong with the precious thing that your mother didn't even dare to give to anybody but your aunt. And your Aunt Smith isn't any Smiths. She is the real aunt. She was the sister of your mother. Your mother was best friends with her and a relation. So my life is a whole lie. My parents, my legacy, my everything. Oh, why am I living in lies? And Olivia ran out the garden crying. Edward thumped his head. Why did I do this? He muttered in himself. Why did I? Now I made the poor girl cry, and he's going to tell his uncle, and I'm going to get in trouble with Mom and Catherine, and Chris is going to win this game again. I don't like prospects like those. Oh, why did I do it? He blamed himself so, but it did not work, because blaming yourself does not help others. So he tried to help her up, but no. She was already on the way home. Alone in this time? It's too late for her. She must go with the carriage. I couldn't stop her. What did you do, Eddie? Cried Catherine. She just burst. She was crying. Her eyes were red. And her dress. She didn't even put on a coat. She had no gloves on, no hat, no nothing, no. She was just bare with a dress. A thin dress. It was a ball dress. How could she run out like that? What did you tell to her? She ran from the sweet garden out. So oh my gosh, what happened? She just ran. I told Alexander he was going to I told that the servants were going to go to search for her, but nobody knows which way she's going to go to her home or wherever she's going. Oh, it's only been 1 minute she's left. Oh, I feel so blameful. What if something happens in the night? What can I do? Oh, and Eddie, what happened? What did you say? What did you hear? What happened to her? Tell me all of it at once. It's no joke right now. Please tell me, quick. I have no time to spare. I have to find her somehow. Edward couldn't endure it. He had made something happen. Something he never wanted to. He always shivered at the thought that she might get lost in the dark. Lost in the dark. How absurd. Lost in the dark. And because of him. Oh, why didn't he put matters into Uncle Tom's hands? Uncle Smith's. He could make everything good. John Smith was to be trusted. Why didn't he trust him? And why wasn't he to trust him to tell her in the right time and in the right way? Not to do such a sensation. Why did he do this? He blamed himself more and more. And he couldn't go to sleep that night. The whole house was in confusion. Nobody went to sleep. Mrs. Moore was getting in hysterics. And Mr. Moore was searching every phone number that could be possibly available to reach. Almost every servant was out, and the whole town was glowing by the lanterns the servants carried and the voices that were heard, and everybody started to search for the missing Olivia. Even Edward went back to his senses in time, and quickly put on his coat, got his muff, and then he took another muff because he knew he would find Olivia, and when he found her, he would get her very nice and comfy in his big muff. The frozen Olivia was running, but suddenly she tripped on something. It was a stone. She fell on the icy floor. And snow. Oh, it was snow. She couldn't climb up. She was too weak. She was crying. Suddenly she felt something. It was too cold. Her body was shivering. The tears turned to ice. She suddenly knew the temperature was so down, and she went out with nothing on except for a ball dress that wasn't even fit to be seen outside. It was her coat. That was my muff. Where are my slippers? Oh, she came out? I came out like this in the weathery storm night? Oh, she gave up life. She knew she wasn't going to live through this. She closed her eyes and put her hand on her chest and felt the last word vanishing her body, and her soul returning to God. But would Edward, Chris let me so? The last thought said to herself, but no, I can't have it. I'm only 14. I hadn't had all my lifelong happiness yet. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I hate it. But before she could utter another word, she froze into a long silence. It was merely 10 minutes till they found her lying on the floor. They hadn't found her anywhere. There were two roads to search. Edward wanted to split himself in two and go to both of them. But no, Chris was out there. Oh, Chris. Why was Chris there? This was his big moment. He had done the wrong and he should make it all right. If Olivia's first sight was Chris, oh, this is horrible. He quickly ran the road down and saw a little figure on the floor and saw something that made his eyes glow. Yes! In 100 meters in front of him was a little shining shoe in the snow. It must have been hers. She would find her. This is great. It is all so good. He ran and ran, but the snow came thicker and thicker, and he almost couldn't see the little light that was shining. But then suddenly he could see it again. Yes, it was flashing there. He went to grab it and found that it was attached to a foot. That it was so cold that he almost startled. It was Olivia. Olivia was lying on the ground with her cold hand still on her chest. He was in despair. He called Chris. For the first time in his life, he never thought he would have done something like that, but he did. Chris heard it from the other side because it was such a loud yell. Chris came running, but it was a while till he came. Before that, he quickly took off his coat and put it onto her, picked her up, and carried her a while. Then he found it was too cold, so he put one arm in his coat and the other on hers, so they were almost wrapped together. And then he put the muffs on her, and then Chris came, and then Catherine too. And Catherine just fell on her. Oh dear, why isn't she waking up? Oh, can this be? What happened to her? Oh, get the doctor, Alexander, as quick as possible. Even if he's in his pajamas, he has to come. Or if he hasn't any slippers on, because the Olivia, the darling, went out without slippers too. Get the doctor quick, before everything turns worse, or is this over? She quickly picked up her bosom friend. Her friend opened the eyes a bit. Her eyes are open, everybody said quietly. But hearing a word, the eyelids dropped again, as if it was too hard, that she had no muscles to control her eyelids. Her mouth wanted to say something. She said in a quiet tone, "Edward, Eddie," in a so quiet tone that almost nobody could hear it, except for Catherine and Edward, who were standing the nearest to him. Chris had run to fetch the doctor because he was the best sporter, and he knew this was his duty. And Alexander had gone by horse, but the horse was very hard to go on ice floor, so the horse went very slow, but safe to the doctor. And then servants came with light, and they had blankets and things to go over her. At last, a carriage came. They put her in, but it was only small enough for two people in it, because it was meant for Alexander to get the doctor again. But it was as good as none. She was put in, and everybody was decided to put Catherine in it too, because she had given her coat to her, and now she was as bare as she was, with only a dress that was not a bit good for her in the dark. She wrapped her arms around the little Olivia and cried bitter tears, while Sam, the driver, was almost stricken by the scene that was behind him, and the mare seemed to fly as fast as the wind can. And he never ever got doubted, because he was called Stormy, and this is in stormy weather. The white horse flashed in every corner of the town, and finally it came to the grand building of the Moors. Everybody was waiting there, but someone was missing. Where was Edward? Edward? Where's Edward? Said Dorothy when she came out to meet them. Yes, where's Edward? They missed Edward. Where's he? Alexander came with the carriage, and Edward was inside and the doctor. They quickly came out. Nothing was said again. They put the frozen girl into on the sofa where the fire was burning behind it. And Edward could still see the little tears that had frozen, and the hand on his chest. He softly touched the hand and went away. Catherine sat hours waiting for her to wake up and see her and open her eyes, or at least utter a word or something. She kneeled beside her as if she was someone too precious to lose. She couldn't cry. It was too tragic. She didn't understand it. Her soul was still in the moment when she saw Olivia running and bursting with tears. It was too fast for her brain. She knew she was clever, but not as clever as could get everything in her mind as quick as this. It was too quick for her. It was like a flash, and then she saw her bosom friend on the sofa, like a flash, just a flash. But it might have been a lot more than a flash. It went too fast. She didn't understand it. She could never understand it. But now it wasn't about understanding. It was about if she could live through this. She almost didn't know that she was so pale like Olivia, but only the paleness of her was the pale of suffering and worry. But the paleness of Olivia was sorrow and cold. Chris, Dorothy, and Nora always came in to look at her, and they always brought some little food or water because they always thought she was awake, but no. Every time they only saw a girl bending over another one who was frozen, and a servant beside them who was very drum-stricken. Alexander the wise man now was almost dumb, like a bird without a head. And he had no brain in his head anymore. He was just dumbstruck. He could only cry a little cry and then go to the mistress and comfort her. She was in a rate of studious. She did not know what happened, and she did not want to know. She called all the doctors, and in an hour, the Smiths came. Mr. Smith came and bent over him. What happened to her? What have you done? I believed you so much. I trusted you. But look at my girl now. What happened? He said in a furious tone when he saw her. But Mrs. Smith, Aunt Smith, was too weak to even speak or make a speech. She could only bend over her girl like Catherine and cry some bitter tears. But after the first drop dropped on Olivia's cheek where her tear had dropped, she awoke. Her eyes, her big, big blue eyes, filled with a sorrow that everybody could see now. It opened, and it looked at the motherly look that Mrs. Smith had. "Aunt," she whispered. "Yes, dear, I'm here. I have to tell you something. I know the secret you're keeping from me. I know it. My father never died. Why did you keep the secret? I thought you loved me enough to trust me with this big secret. Do you think I would blame you?" And with those words, her eyelids dropped again, and her hand that was for a time very hot was pale clothed again. Everybody had cried. And when Mr. Smith heard about this, he was just furious. How did she know that her father is still alive? How? He said. "I don't care how, but who said it? Or how did she know it? Or how did she come to this state?" I don't know," said the others, because they had never saw someone so angry before. "Well, I guess it's just something that had happened. But we can't do anything now." Well. I think we can't do anything now," sighed Dorothy. "Oh, don't stop," said Nora, and glared at her. "She ain't going to die in her life, so young a girl, and so pretty, and so useful. She's going to live a long, great life, and I know it. I feel it in my bones, even though I'm just skinny bones, like you always said. But I have bones, and I have a brain, and my brain works better than yours. I know it, Dorothy Moore. I know that you're just jealous of her, and you don't want to admit it. Admit it now, because you have to. If you don't, something will happen, and I bet you'll be sorry for that. I know you're just jealous, and you don't want her as a sister at all. And I know this will happen. She'll get her happy life, and you won't, Dorothy. Dorothy, don't be such a dumb girl and always think about yourself and people that you love the most. You have to learn to share. She glared at Dorothy, and the glare was so a big glare that Dorothy almost gave a little cry. And so the night ended and the conversation stopped.